Picture this, a boy facing death and returning with a message so powerful it could change the course of humanity. This is no ordinary story. It's the extraordinary account of a 12-year-old boy who experienced something beyond this world. This is the story of a 12-year-old boy who died and came back to reveal a vision of what the world will be like in the year 2025. What's most shocking is that this vision connects to an unexpected figure, Barron Trump. This video boy will challenge everything you think you know about the future. Did he catch a glimpse of what's to come, or was it a divine warning that we can't ignore? Stay until the end, because this story has a twist that will leave you speechless. Daniel was a curious boy full of energy and always full of questions. He lived in a quiet neighborhood where he spent his days playing soccer with his friends, riding in the park, and exploring the woods behind his house. Spirit made him popular and a deep thinker for his age. He loved to reflect on the universe, life, and what happens after death. Although his family was not very religious, his grandmother was a woman of unshakable faith and always talked to him about God. Daniel's neighborhood was quiet. He spent his days playing soccer with his friends, riding in the park, and exploring the woods behind his house. Spirit made him popular and a deep thinker for his age. He loved to reflect on the universe, life, and what happens after death. Although his family was not very religious, his grandmother was a woman of unshakable faith. She always talked to him about God, the power of prayer, and divine interventions that we couldn't see. One afternoon, as the two of them talked on the veranda, she said to him, "Daniel, there is much more to this world than we can see. One day, God may call you to something great. Be prepared." Daniel just smiled and thought it was just another one of his stories about faith. Daniel's grandmother was convinced of the power of prayer and divine interventions that we couldn't see. One afternoon, as the two of them talked on the veranda, she said to him, "Daniel, there is much more to this world than we can see. One day, God may call you to something great, so be prepared." Daniel just smiled, thinking it was just another one of his stories about faith. But his grandmother's story remained with him. On a sunny Saturday, Daniel was taking part in a soccer tournament. The sky was clear, and the air seemed to vibrate with energy. His parents were in the stands, cheering enthusiastically as he ran with determination across the field. The game was going on, and Daniel wanted more than anything to score the winning goal. The middle of the match was when something happened. Daniel's heart stopped. On a sunny Saturday, Daniel was playing in a soccer tournament. His parents were in the stands, cheering enthusiastically. Daniel ran across the field with determination. He wanted to score the winning goal. Abruptly, he brought his hands to his chest and fell to his knees before collapsing to the ground. The stadium fell silent. His parents ran onto the pitch, and the coach shouted for someone to call. Together, the teammates watched in shock as their expressions of excitement turned into fear. The ambulance arrived quickly, and the pitch became a scene of urgency and despair. Daniel's parents watched helplessly as paramedics performed cardiopulmonary resuscitation. The seconds seemed eternal, but there were no signs of life for 7 minutes. For 7 minutes, Daniel's heart stopped beating, and his body was completely still. Everyone thought he was dead. But those 7 minutes changed the course of his life. While his body lay lifeless in the field, Daniel experienced something he couldn't explain. Later, he described it as an immediate feeling of freedom. It was as if his soul had been lifted from his physical body. The pain and panic disappeared, and a strange and profound peace took their place. He saw the rescuer struggling to revive him and his parents crying around him. The scene faded, and he felt drawn to something greater, something bigger. Everything around him disappeared, and a light appeared in the distance. It was ordinary light, unlike anything he had ever seen. Pulsing with warmth and energy, it radiated a peace that enveloped his whole being as he got closer. As he drew nearer, the light intensified, yet remained undazzling. The scene faded, and he felt drawn to something greater. A light appeared in the distance. It was ordinary light, unlike anything he had ever seen. Pulsing with warmth and energy, it radiated a peace that enveloped his whole being as he got closer. The light became more intense, but without dazzling his eyes. He felt no fear, only a deep sense of belonging. Then he saw it. A figure emerged from the light towards him with a grace that transcended human movements. Daniel knew immediately who Jesus was. He didn't need any introduction or explanations. Deep in his soul, he recognized the Son of God standing before him. "Do not be afraid," Daniel said to Jesus in a soft voice. "I have something to show you." Daniel couldn't speak, but he didn't have to. Jesus could hear your thoughts and answer your questions before you even asked them. He made you feel completely seen, known, and loved. At that moment, Jesus reached out, and the space around you changed. Daniel felt as if Jesus guided him through a series of visions. Jesus caught you up to this point. Don't forget to follow our channel and activate notifications so you can follow this journey and be part of this story. This helps us continue to bring you more stories. I'm about to show you what Jesus said, and when the time comes, you must share it. The first vision showed the world as it is today. Daniel saw people living their lives in a hurry, disconnected from each other. He saw families sitting in the same room but trapped in their own worlds, staring at screens instead of looking at each other. He saw conflicts breaking out in cities, people shouting and fighting over their differences. Everywhere he looked, there were political conflicts. Jesus said, "This is the world as it is. You must share it when the time comes." The first vision showed the world as it is today. Daniel saw people living their lives in a hurry, disconnected from each other. He saw families sitting in the same room but trapped in their own worlds, staring at screens instead of looking at each other. He saw conflicts breaking out in cities, people shouting and fighting over their differences. Everywhere he looked, there were political, racial, and other conflicts. This is the world as it is. Jesus said this with a tone that mixed sadness and hope. But it's not the world as it should be. The vision changed. Daniel saw natural disasters, floods, fires, earthquakes. He saw people leaving their homes in search of safety but without finding it. A young leader appeared before a crowd. His speech was full of hope and fear at the same time. Daniel watched attentively as the crowd listened to every word of that young man with a mixture of hope and apprehension. Racial and ethnic tensions are evident in the world as it is. Jesus said with a tone that mixed sadness and hope, but it's not the world as it should be. The vision changed. Daniel saw natural disasters, floods, fires, and earthquakes. He saw people leaving their homes in search of safety, but without finding it. A young leader appeared before a crowd. His speech was full of hope and fear at the same time. Daniel watched attentively as the crowd listened to every word of that young man with a mixture of hope and apprehension. His countenance was striking, radiating confidence and authority, as if every action could change the course of events. Suddenly, everything began to fade, and the image disappeared. Daniel was still trying to understand who that young man was. When Jesus spoke again, the year 2025 will be a turning point. Humanity will be facing a crossroads, and the choices made will shape the future for generations to come. Daniel's heart was racing as he assimilated those words. He understood what it meant. Daniel's heart raced as he processed the revelation. He had just seen the young man, and he now understood the weight of his responsibility. He was compelled to inquire about this figure, but before he could, the vision shifted. This time, he saw a world not as it is, but as it could be, a place filled with light, where people from different backgrounds came together with love and purpose. He witnessed communities rebuilding, families reconnecting, and leaders working for the common good, setting aside self-interest and the chains of division and fear that kept humanity imprisoned. I want to replace bonds of compassion and understanding. Jesus said this in a serene tone, but the choice is up to humanity. The visions were over, but one detail remained etched in Daniel's mind, the mysterious young man on stage. When he finally opened his eyes and returned to the world, the image of the boy was still vivid in his memory. Days later, while watching the news, I want to replace bonds of compassion and understanding. Jesus said this in a serene voice, but the choice is up to humanity. The visions were over, but one detail remained etched in Daniel's mind, the mysterious young man on stage. When he finally opened his eyes and returned to the world, the image of the boy was still vivid in his memory days later while watching the news with his father. Something unexpected happened while they were watching the news. The young man's face appeared on the screen. It was Daniel, his father exclaimed in a trembling voice. He looked at the television, confused. Baron Trump? He's Donald's youngest son. Trump? Daniel couldn't believe it. He didn't know much about Baron after all. He was a discreet figure and rarely appeared in the media. Baron Trump appeared on the screen, and the young man's face was unmistakable. Daniel, Donald's youngest son, was on the screen. Trump was shocked. He didn't know much about Baron, after all. He was a discreet figure and rarely appeared in the media. Yet he was sure that this was the young man. Jesus will show him, but why? Baron Trump, a figure rarely seen in the media, appeared in a significant vision. Daniel knew this wasn't a coincidence. He remembered Jesus' words, "You'll understand when the time comes." Daniel felt a weight on his shoulders from that message. He was just a 12-year-old boy. How could he carry such a burden? If he told the truth, despite his doubts, he began to share his story with his grandmother. She was the only person he knew would believe him without question. She finished his story, held his hands with tear-filled eyes, and said, "Daniel, I always knew that God had a plan for you. Now I know what it is. You have been chosen." Grandmother's words gave Daniel the courage he needed to begin telling his story to his friends, his family, and even members of the church. Daniel's story provoked a wide range of reactions. Some were deeply touched, believing his vision was a true divine revelation. Others were skeptical, attributing it to the imagination of a boy. However, everyone's attention was caught by his mention of Baron Trump. Intrigued, many asked questions. Even those who didn't believe the story could find an explanation for a 12-year-old boy's ability to describe someone in such detail. The story spread quickly, and local pastors invited him to speak at their churches. Initially nervous, he confidently repeated the story. Daniel's confidence grew as he recounted his story. He knew he wasn't just telling a story, he was fulfilling a mission. When he went up to the altar and saw the eyes of the congregation attentive to every word, he remembered what Jesus had said, "What you saw, share it." But Daniel still didn't know. Was Baron Trump the young man a prophetic figure or something greater, a symbol? The narrative of Daniel's story began to spread. Networks caught the attention of some local press outlets. Some reporters approached with a tone of skepticism. Debates quickly arose. Was Daniel telling the truth, or was it all just a desire to attract attention? Those who sat with him and listened to his account knew it was something that could not be ignored. The intensity in his eyes, the firmness of his voice, and the vividness of his visions were undeniable. Daniel was not famous. Daniel's account was undeniable. His eyes were intense, his voice firm, and the vividness of his visions was striking. He was there to share a warning or an opportunity. His name began to circulate, and soon he was invited to participate. What had started as a simple testimony in a small church hall was now attracting crowds. People wanted to understand what he had seen and perhaps find hope in his words. Daniel did not see himself as a prophet. Daniel saw himself as a messenger, an ordinary boy who received something extraordinary. He didn't know why Barron Trump was shown to him, but he knew it was no accident. Jesus had made it clear that Daniel had a role to play, and that role was linked to the choices that humanity would have to make in 2025. The mention of Barron Trump's name generated curiosity and intense debate. Daniel suggested that Barron would become a leader. Daniel confidently asserts that Barron Trump is more than just a symbol of something greater. The ambiguity of the vision allows for different interpretations and soon various theories. Over time, Daniel's story began to spread even more, and he was invited to interview on local radio stations and online platforms. His sincerity and passion captivated the public, but inevitably, the mention of Barron Trump was what attracted the most attention. Accused him of using the Trump name to attract visibility, while others saw this as divine confirmation of the important role of that family. But Daniel wasn't concerned with politics. "It's not about Barron or me," he explained during an interview. "It's about the message that Jesus gave me, it's about the path we all have to take. Choose." Daniel remained focused on what really mattered, the warning that humanity was at a decisive moment. 2025 would be a. He believed that he could not remain silent. Barron Trump's role in the vision was not fully clear to him, but he trusted Jesus's reasons. The message was for the whole world, not just him. Daniel's narrative provoked intense reactions. People from different backgrounds and beliefs contacted him. Some sent messages of support, others skepticism, and some criticism. Daniel remained steadfast in his mission. What he had experienced and the responsibility to share his vision continued to be one of the most important questions. Why Barron Trump? Questions soon dominated discussions on forums and social networks. Some believed that Barron could assume a leadership position in the future, perhaps following in his father's footsteps. Others believed that he represented a symbol of the new generation and its potential to change the world. Daniel didn't have all the answers, but he reinforced an important point. Daniel remained steadfast in his mission. He knew he had a responsibility to share his vision, and he did just that. Barron Trump was a question that soon took over discussions on forums and social networks. Some believed that Barron could assume a leadership position in the future, perhaps following in his father's footsteps. Others believed that he represented a symbol of the new generation and its potential to change the world. Daniel knew he didn't have all the answers, but he reinforced an important point. "It's not politics," he said during a live broadcast. "It's about the future of humanity." What he saw was not a prediction of power or fame. It was a reminder that all of us, regardless of who we are, have a crucial role in God's plan. The discussions about the role of Barron Trump took on a life of their own as major press outlets began to cover the story. Some covered it with sensationalism, others, with genuine curiosity. Social media filled with debates, memes and theories about the meaning of Daniel's vision filled the air. Amidst all this noise, Daniel remained focused on the essence of his message. 2025 will be a turning point. "Jesus showed me two paths," he said in his speeches. "One leads to unity, light, and healing." Daniel confidently asserts that the choice before us is not one of mere options, but a fundamental decision that rests with each of us. He speaks with conviction about the chains of fear, hatred, and prejudice that bind humanity. Daniel's message is clear: it's time to break free from these shackles and follow the path of love. One remarkable evening, Daniel was invited to address a crowd of hundreds present and thousands more following the event. The auditorium was packed with people searching for answers and hope. Many were carrying pain, deep losses, separations, and doubts. Daniel sensed a tension in the air, but he also felt the potential for hope. He began with a question: have you ever felt powerless, as if the world was slipping out of control, as if the darkness was closing in around you and there was nothing you could do? The auditorium was silent, all eyes were on him. I felt that way too, but Jesus showed me something different. He showed me that darkness doesn't have to overcome light is stronger, always has been, and always will be. The good news is that this light lives inside each one of us. Daniel described the vision of 2025 again, emphasizing that the future is not set in stone. Jesus did not show me a world, he explained with a voice. He showed me the world that awaits us, a world of love instead of hate, unity instead of division, faith instead of fear. There is still time, but the time to act is now. As Daniel spoke, it seemed that his words ignited something inside people. He described the chains he had seen in his vision, emotional and spiritual barriers that trap people in cycles of fear and judgment. Daniel made it clear: chains are not just symbolic. They are real. They are the anger we hold, the grudges we refuse to let go of, the walls we build between ourselves. But Jesus showed me that these chains can be broken. The key is love. Daniel paused, allowing his words to echo. I know that many of you are carrying chains right now. He asserted that many of you are carrying chains right now. These chains may be anger at someone who has hurt you, fear of what is, or doubt about being worthy of God's love. But let me tell you what Jesus told me: you are loved, you are seen, and you are chosen. Many began to quietly weep with emotion at Daniel's words. God has a purpose for each one of us, he continued. Daniel's voice was filled with conviction as he declared, I didn't just choose me to share this message. He chose you to hear it. He is calling you to step into the light, break your chains, and help others. As Daniel spoke, he felt a deep connection with the audience. This was no longer just about the vision he will receive, it was about a mission shared by all. 2025 is coming. Daniel confidently asserted that 2025 is not just a date on the calendar, it's a pivotal turning point, an opportunity to choose the path that leads us to the light. He made an emphatic call to action, inviting those who have been touched by his message and feel called to be part of something bigger to join him on this journey. This is about more than just hearing a story, it's about living it. Together, they will create a world where love wins. It's not just a date on the calendar, it's a turning point, an opportunity to choose the path that leads us to the light. But that choice starts today, starts with you. He concluded his speech with a sincere invitation: if this message has touched your heart, if you feel the call to be part of something bigger, join us on this journey. It's not just about hearing a story, it's about living it. Together, we can create the world Jesus showed me, a world where love wins, where the chains are, where light shines in every corner. Daniel pointed to the screen behind him, where the words participate in the mission. Together, we choose the light. Sign up to stay connected, listen more, and walk alongside us on this journey. You are not alone. We are in this together, and with God's guidance, we can make a difference. The audience stood and applauded. Daniel felt a deep peace deep inside him. He knew that the journey would be difficult. But he also knew that he was not alone. God was with him, as well as a growing community of people willing to answer the call. Daniel closed the evening with a powerful prayer, his voice firm but full of emotion. Heavenly Father, Thank you for showing us the way. Thank you for your love, your light, and your grace. Help us to walk with faith to break the chains that bind us, and to choose the sea that leads us to the Lord. Strengthen yourself, love. In Jesus' name, Amen. As people began to leave, many stayed to talk. Pray and forge bonds of friendship with strangers became the new norm. Messages began to be shared on social networks, with people from different parts of the world sharing their stories of faith and transformation. Daniel's story inspired Transform S, which was not just a testimony. Pray and forge bonds of friendship with strangers became friends united by a common purpose. Messages began to social networks with people from different parts of the world sharing their stories of faith and transformation. Inspired by Daniel's story was not just a testimony, it became a movement for those who heard his message. It wasn't just the narrative of a near-death experience of a young boy, it was a divine reminder that even in the darkest moments, God's light continues to shine. As the world approached 2025, that light became a beacon of hope guiding humanity to the future that Jesus had shown them. Together, they would choose the light. Together, they would answer the call.